Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. Hunter Manuel has over 25 years of experience in the health and fitness industry and has led teams at some of the most well-known health clubs in New York City, such as Equinox and New York Sports Club, just to name a few. He has been a competitive athlete his entire life, competing in martial arts, bodybuilding, powerlifting, running, biking, and extreme obstacle racing. Previously, he was the managing director at a strategic management consulting firm, and he co-founded and co-directed F.A.S.T, New York City, a non-profit specializing in implementing exercise, sports, nutrition, and anti-violence programs into at-risk NYC public schools. Now, he is co-founder of what will undoubtedly be the biggest new age wellness facility in the world, Omni Club NY. Joined with him is his amazing wife, mother, athlete, and partner and chief design officer at Omni Club, Tatiana Somers. Tatiana is responsible for oversight and planning of commercial interior projects, as well as contributing to the brand direction and innovation at Omni Club. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Nice to meet you in person.
So, yes, same. And look, I'm excited to have you both on, and I know that you do a lot together, so it's really good that you could both come on. And just to backtrack a bit, I actually wanted to let you know that I found you because I came across this website of this absolutely amazing gym that's coming soon, I believe. And I've just never seen anything like it. So I can't wait to talk to you about that. And then I found out about F.A.S.T NYC, which is an amazing program, that a non-profit that you're very much involved with and founded and co-directed. And so I want to talk to you about that and how you're helping young kids, both in sports, nutrition, health. Absolutely amazing. But even before we get into all of that, I just wanted to actually start with your personal journey. If maybe, Hunter, you could just tell us a bit about your personal journey with health and fitness. I know you've been a competitor in almost everything. So how did all that start and where did you get to?
Well, I think it started when my parents divorced when I was born. So I saw my father on weekends and spent most of the time with my mother. And someone told her that if a single mom raised boys by themselves, that they'd be wimps and people would take advantage of them. And so she ended up putting us in every sport there was. So it was football, baseball, wrestling, whatever she could. And she also played catcher for a softball team. So
she was tough.
Super tough lady, put us in every single sport there was. Then at the same time, I would visit my father on weekends, and he had lifted weights before and had actually built a gym in his house. So, and I had also joined the local gym. This is in 1975. So I experienced him working out and drinking protein shakes every other weekends. And then the rest of the time I was playing sports and then watching my mom play softball and then support the whole family by herself. So it was mostly influenced by her. The other side of, seeing my first protein shake ever in 1975, I've kind of got a lot of experience now with nutrition and protein. So I guess that's how it started. And then my sports began to build from there.
Wow, that's definitely an unusual story. And so from there, how did you get into the health side of things?
I think lifting weights, probably starting at 10, 11, and 12, just playing with them and learning how to lift, bridged over into nutrition as far as protein shakes and wanting to eat more and be more muscular to be able to play football and take all that damage. And that was a lifelong, that stayed with me even through my injuries and illnesses throughout the years. That relationship with nutrition and working out seemed to always get me back balanced. So it kind of helped build. It became who I am, actually. If your foundation, for me, was based off of that purity of me and exercise and sports, it gives you something to fall back on. At least you always have that no matter what's going on. So that built into football into high school, which was a very big part of my life, playing football in high school. I come from a small town, Scott, Louisiana, which is a part of Cajun country. I don't know if you've ever been in Louisiana, but you should go. It's an amazing place. And football was basically like the world in this little town. And football became a part of my life. In fact, I thought I was going to go pro and I was going to be the next big thing. And then knee injury later, I'm not. So I had to refigure. So that I'd say figuring out sports at an early age, working out nutrition, having that football experience was a big part in baseball. And then the family and the people I met around there just kind of became who I am. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. And then did you become a coach or a trainer or what?
Once I got hurt, I went from football lifting to more of a bodybuilder power lifter, because after rehabbing, and you're no longer playing football, there's no really reason to do snatches or clean and jerks or anything like that. So the crowd I was going with was more towards bodybuilding and powerlifting. So it kind of went that route. I forgot where I was going with it.
And then you came to New York.
Oh, and how did I get to New York? So after that, competing in some powerlifting and some bodybuilding meets, learning a ton. Bodybuilders, they get a bad rap for steroids and other things, but they are almost scientists when it comes to nutrition. It's the first time I've ever experienced people who are so strict and so smart about nutrition, and I'm talking about natural bodybuilders also, that they could get their body down to 2 or 3% body fat. So that was a really big part. I was dating a girl who was a model in college who moved to New York City to model with 3 other models. And one of the girls got homesick and moved back to Louisiana. And so she called me up and said, listen, we need a roommate. Would you like to come to New York and live with us? And so I was like, okay. So I moved to New York. First thing I did, I needed a job. And so I got a job as a personal trainer as my start at Equinox. And that was how I got into the fitness aspect in New York City. And that was a whole world opening to one, a country boy from Louisiana coming to New York. That was a whole story upon itself. And then 2, entering in this new field of fitness. And at the time, Equinox was I'd say Equinox is one of the top players now. It was definitely the top player in New York then. They had some very smart people running the clubs. They based their personal training off of science. They taught nutrition. We had some really good leaders there. And it really helped spur a big push, at least for me, about digging even deeper into personal training and learning more, coaching and experiencing. And during all that, I had, once I was in college, I had coached kids. I had worked with abused children. I know I didn't mention that earlier, but I had started working with children through my college years. That's how I ended up in New York.
And Hunter, how fit and healthy were you, say, when you were a bodybuilder?
Healthy, I would say, at the end, not very healthy when you diet down that much. Fit, nowhere near as fit as I was when I was running a half marathon. Strength-wise, though, much stronger than any other part of my life. So it depends on how you would define healthy or fit. I was fit, I was strong, there was no body fat. I could run 5 or 6 miles, but later on, when I dialed down, when I met Tatiana, who was a huge runner, and I realized hanging out with her more, or wanting to hang out with her more, I would need to do more running. Next thing you know, I'm running half marathons. So then I couldn't walk around at 220 pounds anymore. I had to scale down, and I ended up, getting down to like a 190, 185, and was a much happier person being fit, much happier being with Tatiana.
And how happy and healthy were you as a bodybuilder?
I was happy. I was, what? I don't know if it's how you feel in your sports, but when I was bodybuilding, it was my sport for those years, and I loved every aspect of it. The daily push and the daily gains and the self-analysis. Bodybuilders get a bad rap. They are some very selfish people out there. But when you get a good core group of guys around you and you can critique each other in a very positive way, because bodybuilding is looking at your flaws and bringing them up to match the rest of your body and create symmetry. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the scientific part of mapping out my macros, like lowering my fat grams from 48 to 44, over a period of 2 weeks, and lower them again, or dropping my carbs. That math involved in the nutrition really, really excited me. So I'm a data guy also.
And long term, do you think that's healthy for you?
Bodybuilding wise, or in what aspect? I think if you maximize nutrients while watching your macros, it is healthy for you. I think the extreme lifting, getting over 500 pounds squatting, deadlifting 500-600 pounds, benching 400 or 500 pounds, I think that's too much on the joints as you get older. I think pushing yourself with resistance and gaining muscle is super healthy. I think running's healthy. I think running marathons all the time is not healthy. You know what I mean? I think in all of our sports, you can get to a point where it might be too much for the average Joe.
Yeah, just because the body can do it doesn't necessarily mean you should push it that hard all the time. So.
Exactly. But I imagine Hunter started to push it after he started chasing Tatiana down.
Listen, I
think I chased him more.
I ran for a big, what do you call it? Do you call them blokes in Australia?
Yes.
For a big bloke. What was my half marathon?
Oh, he had good time. It was an hour and 53 minutes.
53 minutes. So I had a little speed
Very
from
good.
my
So,
bigness.
Tatiana, how about yourself?
Well, what's the question?
So, fitness and health journey. Where did it begin?
Let's see. I was an overweight child. So, I was the kid in school who was heavier than everybody else. Didn't know that it was related to my thyroid until really in my 20s. So I always struggled with weight and image. I developed an eating disorder in high school that lasted through my early 20s. So that really was sort of like a big part of my life that feels like it was a lifetime ago. And through that, I really had to learn to accept my body, work with my body. Eating disorder is a dangerous spiral. And, interestingly enough, I was sort of at the tail end of it when I met Hunter. And I was, I'd say about like 23 years old when we met. And he said to me, after going through a lot of therapy for this, he said, look, you know why this happened to you, being an overweight kid, and you get teased and all this other stuff. And he said, now that you have the power, if you continue it, you're making the choice to continue dealing with stress or whatever happens in your life that way. And he said, and that was like a wake up call to me. I never looked at it that way, that if I sort of fell back on that because we're habitual, people are habitual and it's hard to break habits. And it kind of shook me out of myself. And I thought, he's right. I've been going through all this therapy, all this time, and it was like something shifted in me and I started to see my body in a different way. And I started to really treat it differently. And, years later when I had our son, I looked at the human body in it was like a miraculous thing. It was this vessel for another life, and it didn't become about me and it didn't become about my issues and self-image and, and throughout my life, my dad took me running for the first time when I was 6, so my dad's an athlete and he always sort of tried to get me. I was not a sporty kid by any means. I'm artistic. I would want to, be in the art room painting instead of out playing sports. But I enjoyed running because it was solitary and I didn't have to compete. And I didn't want to compete because I wasn't competitive in sports. Running is something I've always sort of taken with me throughout my life. Doesn't matter where I am, where I'm traveling. I just need, my sneakers and I can go. And then, I would say that that's probably my athletic journey. I love yoga. And then Hunter and I met at Equinox. And I sure did spend a lot of time there as an excuse to, see him as he walked by and things like that. But yeah, I'm 44 years old. And I would say over the years, my whole view on exercise and what its purpose is for me, I want to be running when I'm 75 years old. I have friends who have run several marathons and have had knee surgeries already. I know I can run a marathon. I've run half marathons, but I don't even know that I want to run a full marathon. I know I can do it. But, do I want to have any sort of like little stress injuries after? No, I don't. I want my body to move and function and not deal with chronic issues as I age. So,
And let me say, when we finally started dating and started training together, it ended up being quite the combination of energies that made them even greater. I remember our longest workout was 3 hours. We did the step mill for an hour. We did weights for an hour, and then we ran the loop.
Yeah.
And then we went back home, and I think we actually went out for a margarita that night.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay. Our friends thought we were crazy, but we literally just trained for 3 hours straight. We had a ball. We still do have a ball. We've been together over 20 years and still training together. She still crushes me and runs, but she thumbs it up, And
we have heart rate competitions.
We have heart rate monitor competitions. Who has the lowest heart rate? I lose that all the time. She's in the lower 50s. I'm in the 60s. I'm like, really?
Well,
I'm sorry, you're in the 40s. Sorry.
That's amazing. So I want to turn now, Hunter, to your health. So I know it's quite personal. Do you mind sharing with us what's happened to you over the recent years?
Sure. The recent one, I think you're talking about my recent
past year,
my little battle with cancer. Yeah. I started last January. I think I was having like little stomach pains here and there, and being from where I'm from, I don't go to you don't go to the doctor until something's falling off of you.
Well, you're a male as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. So, men don't want to. So I let it go and go to the point where it was like bothering me to drink water. And I started like avoiding food because it hurt to eat. And so she was like, "Are you insane?" Because I didn't even tell her. And then she finally made me go to the doctor. And it was the day before my birthday and Father's Day are always right next to each other. My birthday is June 17th. And Father's Day
was
bounces
the 18th or
around.
something, yeah.
Sometimes it's on my birthday, sometimes it's on other days. And she's like, she's like, you're going to get an endoscopy and a colonoscopy. We're going to check everything out, make sure you're okay. So I fought it. And finally I listened.
And I just want to say before that, we went to an internist who took his blood, did a sonogram of his stomach. His blood work was totally normal.
Yeah, it was fine.
The sonogram was normal. And so
we were doing races in the park.
Yeah.
I was running. Slow as all get out. I thought it was just because
he was tired.
I was tired. I was taking a lot of naps and it was weird.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, I was focused on work and, we're working on the design of Omni and we're super hyper focused. And then so she's like, you're going to go get checked out. So I was like, okay, you got it. When it comes to that, she's the boss and she's been right, 900 times. So we go in and I have the 2 procedures and the doctor comes out, not very good bed manner. And he says, okay, you have cancer. And we were like, all right. Yeah, it's so big. I couldn't even get the scope through. And Tatiana turns, I kind of giggle, but she turns.
I almost passed out.
Yeah, she almost passed out. And
Wow.
I couldn't hear, I couldn't see. I was just like.
So, and given the bloods were okay, I'm sure you wouldn't have even thought that there was really anything wrong.
No, you think, and also in a colonoscopy, they'll be like, oh, there was a polyp. There was, how did it get to this point where it got that,
right.
without us?
And when things like, my reaction is, when high stressful or emergency situation kicks in, my brain just slows everything down and I just come very calm and begin to deal with it. So I begin to systematically deal with it, taking the emotion out of it, which is not healthy. And, we can get into that later, but went to the doctor, scheduled surgery, 3 days later, 2 days later? And he said, you should be out in 3 or 4 days. And we were like, okay, what's the worst can happen? He kind of went over some things, but nothing really that bad should have happened.
They resection the colon and they reconnect it. So he said, there is a chance of a leak. It does happen in a small percentage of patients. I need to tell you that, we always do our best, but that's always the worst thing that could happen. So Hunter, said, make sure I'm not one of those people. He said, I'll do my best.
Making jokes and, having fun, high-fiving the doctor, going into surgery. And I'm not going to get into everything because we'll be here for an hour, but over the next 3 months, I end up having 4 surgeries. So basically my complications where I was leaking bacteria in my body. So the bacteria that belongs inside of our colons and stomach area that processes all this stuff, which is really great. It's hundreds of billions of bacteria was leaking out inside of me everywhere. So I even brushed it off there when it first came in the hospital. I began to blow up and look like a pregnant woman. I was like, I'm fine. She called the doctor in again. And so after the first surgery, got really bad, went home, was on IVs and all kind of other.
He was there for 3 weeks the first time.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I was there for 3 weeks in the hospital the first time. We get home, have to prepare for another surgery. The second surgery, correction surgery, goes wrong again. So I'm the ultra rare 0.001% of a person who has 2 leaks. Begin to poison myself again.
Some of the staples came out. They didn't know why, how.
And so I then had to prepare for last surgery. The last surgery, they basically just cut me wide open, cleaned me out completely, tried to make sure I had no bacteria in me, sewed me back up.
Still got infected, so we were there for 2 weeks.
Right.
Every antibiotic under the sun, trying to heal from that.
Yeah, I will say this, over those 5 months, I was able to train, which I think saved my life.
Hunter would walk through the hospital hallways where they were pushing his IV. And he's, you can tell he's weak. But he would pull over to the side wall and do,
wall push-ups.
Wall push-ups, calf raises, whatever
I could get. Because I felt like, so when you're in the hospital almost dying, you're not moving. Not moving at the end means you're dead. So for me, movement is everything. And then it became, I said, okay, I'm going to be in the hospital in goddamn 21 days. I'm going to train in the hall. So we get to, and then we did a race. At one point I don't know if I should even mention it, but at one point I had an ileostomy bag, which is thankfully not the colostomy bag, which is much harder. And then basically I would eat food and I could see it come out. I had a bag on my chest for 3 weeks.
No, for 2 months.
Oh, 2 months. It's all a blur.
Yeah. I'd make it a blur as well.
Yeah, I think my mind pushes it back. But we did a walk. We were supposed to do a walk race for cancer, fighting cancer. And I had my bag on. You couldn't see it. I'd hide it. Very good at hiding my bag. I didn't want anybody to see it. And ended up being able to run part of the end of the race. I guess a mile or something.
For a week. And there he was, it was, I just have to say, I've in my life never met somebody who is, I'm going to get emotional, but is as brave as he is.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he just talks about it like, I went back to hospital for 2 weeks. No, it was 2 months.
That's what he was like going into 4 surgeries within 2 months. It's like he's cutting up with the doctors and joking. And I'm having a mental breakdown, in my own head thinking, he just.
Well, I think for me, it's the other side doesn't help me. Yeah. So I can't go there. And I also have to be strong for my wife, my son, everybody else. And I'm going through it anyway. Why not go through it with a good attitude? It doesn't help. It would only hurt. I'd be generating even more bad hormones if I was depressed or if I was like feeling sorry for myself. At the end of the day, I'm alive, and I didn't want to leave them. So
that's amazing. I'm sure I'd have a lot of resentment towards why did you stuff this operation up and the next one and the next one.
We got mad in the beginning when we would get out at the end. We were in the hospital so long. We finally asked permission to walk. I said, can we please leave the hospital? Tatiana was pushing it. Can we go across the street into Central Park? I need to get out. I need the sun. We needed something. And they let us out. And so we would go and walk. And I remember getting mad at the obese people. I'm talking 500 pounds, standing on the side of the sidewalk, smoking cigarettes and being
drinking
fine.
A Coke. And
those people, I did. And I never was that guy to get mad at those people. But seeing a 500 pound person drink a Coke, smoke a cigarette and be outside and me be inside battling with all this. So that was it's not a great thing to say you did, but I was mad for a little while about that. So, but
I get that. Wow. That's an amazing story. So where are you now with all of this?
So the very last surgery, I was still, they opened me up, sewed me back, but I was still.
They removed the tumor.
Yeah, all that's done. Cancer-free right now. The whole point is create a system where it doesn't come back. So, but because I was still contaminated after last surgery, I had a lot of throwing up and a lot of really harsh reaction in my body. So my abs are split from top to bottom. So I wear a brace. I'm sure you can hear that now. Now I am able to train. I can do everything, but I can't clean and jerk. But I ran yesterday and did half mile, quarter mile repeats.
2 hours a day in the gym and,
So now as soon as my blood work's almost perfect from my final chemo. The chemo, by the way, is hell on the body. But now as soon as my body's finished balancing out, we'll schedule my hernia surgery. They'll sew me back up. And then I should have I think it's 4 to 6 weeks without any vigorous activity. Yeah. So I figured I would walk and I'm a cheat somehow.
I also just wanted to jump in as far as the chemotherapy. That was something that was really difficult for us to make a decision about because we did so much research on the downsides of it. Yeah. And we really were wrestling with, do we do it at all? So after lots of discussions, Hunter said, I want to try it for a while just in case, because if I don't do it and it comes back, I'm going to be so mad at myself. So they prescribed a 6-month course for him. He did 3 months.
And then we decided to attack.
Stop. And now we're handling it with Chinese herbs and a plant-based diet. And honestly, he's never been in better shape, felt better. I mean, it really is. It's amazing how these things.
Yeah, I've put on, I think, 16 pounds of muscle since September. Mm-hmm. My running's back. I'm jumping rope for 15 minutes at a shot.
I never thought I could get this major carnivore to switch to a vegan diet.
When we met, I had the giant George Foreman grill where I was like counting protein through meat patties and steaks. And then, so one thing about Tatiana is I call her like a scientist. As soon as I got sick and we did the research and it was red meat and dairy that had and alcohol that had caused all this and genetics, and I understand all that, but it was a immediate switch to whole foods, plant-based, because that's the most efficient and the healthiest way to eat. And then Tatiana went through, you learned how to cook whole food, plant-based without meat. It was amazing to watch her struggle. But now we have a complete menu, high protein, plant-based, great fats. I mean, all I eat is plants every day and train. So,
tons of juice.
And so far it's working,
Wow. And do you think you could have actually not done the 3 months of chemo, or do you think you needed that?
No, in fact, with the type of cancer I had, we wouldn't know until after the fact. You can absolutely attack it because even though I had stage 3C, which is the very last stage right before it just spreads throughout your body. So I had waited so long. It was 1, 2, 3, 3A, 3B, 3C. And she saved my life several times. The forcing me to go to the doctor, like literally another week, it could have spread to the rest of my organs. So, I'm sorry, what was your question you had asked directly about? Oh, and so with the remover of the tumor, you can absolutely take the chance. Now, I'm a young 46-year-old for this disease. The diseases are averaging more like late 50s, early 60s. So my survival rate is much better than the older guys. But there is like, I think, what was the mortality rate? Like 58% or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. But
it's enough to make you think twice about it. And so the doctors presented in the way of, we want you to take the chemo so we can blast. They like the word blast. We want to blast that area.
You basically carpet bomb the body with horrific toxins, but you're getting every cell. It's not just...
You're just destroying everything else. Now, so two of them, one of the drugs is a platinum base where you take it in as an IV. And trying to explain like an athlete, imagine your heaviest workout ever times 10, where I couldn't get off the couch. I felt polluted. It was like I couldn't move. And then what we figured out, another reason why we decided to go halfway through the chemo and stop and then attack it with plants was I had so many surgeries that imagine how cut up my insides are.
So the chemo was just like...
As soon as the chemo would come in, not only would it affect my whole body and drain me of energy, but the amount of pain in the area was worse than any of the surgeries. I mean, I was like literally balled over. But I would say it would pass, and then I would go to we have a gym in our building, thank God, and I would go to the gym, and... Even
in feeling like that,
it worked. It helped me through. As soon as I could get over that initial ridiculous... Or actually... What worked for me after the IVs was to take the IV in the hospital. I remember the last time we did it, and then go to the gym before the effect took. So I remember the last time was I went with Austin, and I said, okay, this last one's really going to kill me. Let me do legs, because I won't be able to do legs after. And I had a great leg workout. And then in about 4 hours, it hits you, and you just feel like probably how you in Hong Kong breathing that air for too long. You just feel like you can't move. You can't. It's not good for the body.
And also, I think there's a big question. I mean, there's so much we don't know about cancer. And I think right now, the only thing that they really know, at least majority of cancers, is to carpet bomb it. And I can't help but wonder if down, years and years down the road, we look at it the way that we look at, putting leeches on people's bodies.
Right. I would say what we learned, and I think we all know intuitively, especially as an athlete, if you're eating correctly for your body, you're maximizing the nutrients your body needs, each organ. That's it. You can't overdo vitamin A or underdo vitamin A. You can't overdo protein you have to eat what's perfect for your body. And so chemo, no chemo, the really only way to eat is plant-based. Cancer loves meat. It loves dairy. It loves alcohol. It loves sugar. So you can't, if you want to fight cancer, you can't have any of that in your life if you're going to be real about it. You have to train, and you have to limit the things that are going to hurt you. Then you decide it's your own life. If it's so bad that you need to blast chemo for a bit, then some people make that decision. Other people make it just fight it. But you can't get the nutrients wrong.
And there's different cancers where chemo is much more effective
right.
than others, So I think that comes into play too when you're trying to figure out if it's the right route. So we did it halfway. We
learned a lot. We saw what it did. If it helped, it helped. If it didn't, I don't think we'll ever know. My goal is to get 5 years without it coming back, and then my survival rate is through the roof. So this will be the end of year 1. Mm-hmm. I get my blood tested, every 3 months?
3 months, yeah.
Yep. So I'll have to have an exam once a year and go from there.
Well, you're an inspiration. It's amazing. And I feel like I could talk to you about this all day.
I know, we'll go. That's why I was like, let me kind of keep this short. Jesus.
I want to ask you about Omni Club.
Sure.
So I imagine that you were in the doings of Omni Club when all this happened.
It was.
You had to put it all on hold. I guess I want to backtrack a bit. How did Omni Club even come about?
Well, I would say, could you design a perfect gym for you? What you think would be a perfect gym?
I wouldn't need much.
Right, but you could, right? For you, right? So my mind is always thinking that way. And I was a member of, I like doing shout outs. First shout out I'd like to give is to Mark Hunt, who's the Australian MMA heavyweight, who is an amazing guy. So I just wanted to tell you that. He is amazing. I trained at a gym called Red Laurel's in Lafayette, Louisiana. It's one of the largest clubs in the United States now. It's like 200,000 square feet. Amazing. And training there, you saw all aspects of it. You saw swimming. They have MMA now. They have outdoor training. So my brain is always thinking, where could I go where I could, in a perfect scenario, there would be a nap pod, right? I could train twice. I could get good food. And so my brain was always thinking, what would be the perfect health club facility for me? So I want a leg press that holds 1,000 pounds, but I want a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So I'd always had this in mind. So we decided this is after F.A.S.T is going along. I got really good at sports programming with F.A.S.T as we put these nutrition and sports program in at-risk schools. That helped me fine-tune what I saw that really worked. So as I'm thinking about the design of Omni, I was able to continue to work on my training and what really works on the body, heart rates, all that, as far as with children. It just being in the system helps the design of a club like this come to life.
In fact, just before you get into Omni, tell us a bit about F.A.S.T, your nonprofit.
We were living in Russia and we moved back when our son was, 4? We found out he had a tumor in his femur.
It's a benign tumor.
And by the time we found out, that's a whole other weird story. By the time we found out that it was there and had it removed, we had to move back to the United States. He ended up having an external fixator, and that caused a whole other thing.
He's fine now.
Yeah, he's great. We ended up, because we moved back from Russia, it wasn't enough time to get into...
it's mid-year.
Right. So we ended up in a public school right next to our house. And the public school was not in great shape. It didn't have a parent association, a functioning parent association. It had one, but it didn't really do anything. Sports was very limited. The nutrition was really bad.
And also this school is right across the street from Central Park. And they
never went there.
They never went out there. They play sports, in a concrete lot for 20 minutes, and that was recess. And
so because we were moved back from Russia, I was still working on my Russia stuff. So I do it at night till 3 o'clock in the morning, which allowed me to be free during the day. So I would walk Austin to school. I volunteered at the school, ended up becoming part of the Parents Association at the school.
President of the President's Council.
I ended up becoming president of all the Parent Associations of East Harlem, if you can imagine that. And that we began to put programs at my son's school.
Little by little, we had kids coming over because we lived across the street. And we had a nice size apartment. We had kids coming over after school. They would just sort of tag along with our son. And if it was nice weather, we would take them across the street to the park. Hunter would play soccer with them or whatever. And then in the wintertime, when the weather was bad, they'd come inside. We'd do art projects.
We ended up having 20 kids at the house.
It started to get overwhelming. And one day our doorman called us and said, I have a posse of kids downstairs looking for Mr. Hunter. And we couldn't let that many kids up, So we realized there was a huge void. School's out at 2:20. A lot of these kids, nobody's at home, They're
called latchkey kids, yeah. Crime goes through the roof, a lot of fights.
We realized there really was a huge void, and that's why we decided to start F.A.S.T.
Yeah, so I went from taking my son across the street and putting in sports in that school, and then it was costing us too much money, and so we decided to let's form a nonprofit, raise some money, and put it in.
We're also sponsored by the Nets.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. I was going to get to that in a second. So we started with one school, and as we began to work with local schools, because I was president of the President's Council, I had access to all these East Harlem schools, and my job as a parent association was to teach each school how to raise money and put sport programs in their school. So that was the teaching aspect. Then one of our friends, Irina Pavlova, who used to work with the Nets, found out about F.A.S.T. They donated to us 2 years in a row, which gave us a lot of money to affect a lot of schools in Brooklyn. We worked with the borough president of Brooklyn. They were building playgrounds. We formed programs and trained teachers and coaches to work in those playgrounds. So some nice symmetry affected a few thousand kids who got new playgrounds and programs at the same time. So I don't know. I felt energized every time I was at one of the schools. We could turn the school around. My favorite story, it's a quick story, is we went to the school in East Harlem. They were averaging 4 fights at a recess. They had a big recess yard. They had basketball courts. They had a track, and they had actual turf to play football. There was no PE instructors, no teachers trained in to do that. So these kids are running around just fighting. So we got our grant, put it in the school, and we had flag football, we had a track program, we had basketball and girls cheerleading and gymnastics during recess, and there was 0 fights. So we would come out of that just beaming, and that was our little contribution. And we, fell in love with some kids. Hopefully we changed them. We changed them for a few years.
But it's difficult to keep something like that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's us just raising money. So it's slowly I stopped doing the programs and was raising more money than anything else. And so
we started putting our own money in, and it just...
Right. So now the goal is we're always going to be involved somehow with F.A.S.T. And if once Omni is up and running and very successful, then we're going to take a chunk out of that and fund F.A.S.T. again and, keep putting sports in.
Awesome. So you came up with this idea of, I want the best gym for me.
I need the best gym for our family and our friends on the Upper East Side. And for me, that means, okay, I need the best food. So I need to have a cafe there, right? If I'm decided to drink, which I'm not allowed, maybe once a month. If you're going to have a business meeting after, there should be something nice, maybe some organic wine, organic spirits, or something that at least the healthiest possible way. So if I'm building muscle, I need resistance. I need leg presses that hold 1,000 pounds if necessary. If I'm a big guy, I need treadmills. We have a super treadmill, or we will have a super treadmill that goes up to 28 miles an hour for very fast athletes. So I'll begin to put this together.
Usain Bolt can come in and...
Right. The only thing that really regenerates the body is called hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is somewhat of the mono unit is pretty big. It's a medical device. It's been used for over 100 years. And that's definitely necessary there. A cryo chamber to bring down inflammation. Treadmills underwater, which is a HydroWorks 300 for physical therapy. We have a massage pod where you can pop in with your clothes on, a clam that closes on you, and it massages you with water, but there's a lining in between so you don't get wet. We needed a tread pool. Tread pool is basically you swim against the current, so we're in Manhattan, so you don't have room for a pool most of the time. You need to meditate to self-center yourself, to get centered, to appreciate where you are. So, of course, yoga and meditation comes along with that. You need... Yeah, that also, but you also need ability to track your data. So we have a system, we have a system that, when implemented, will track you from the time you walk in to the time you leave. If you actually get on one of my machines, you don't have to do anything. It will record what you're doing into the cloud, into your own program. And all that data should be available to you all the time. Also, you need a blood test so we can take a look at what you're deficient in as far as nutrition. In a perfect world, you'd have Athletigen or 23andMe send back your DNA, which we've worked with before, and we can get a look at maybe you're prone to certain diseases or prone to certain injuries, so now we have more information. And then you need help from supercomputer Watson to then form a program that actually projects over a year for you. Now, we figured out a way to do that for every member for free. Now, you have to pay for the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, obviously, and the physical therapy, but the nutrition and the programming, every member who comes will actually get that for free. And that's without getting into more detail, would be a perfect health club.
Wow.
So we're actually, where do you get healthy? It's health club, right? It's not about vanity. It's teaching people how to really be healthy. Teaching you, who is obviously a super athlete, how can we make you even better? Less injuries. How do we even center you even more? Maybe more meditation, maybe, whatever it takes. And then how do we get you stronger and flexible? That's when I see people, that's where my brain goes,
So in most gyms, if you have a teenager, your 13-year-old can't really go to the gym with their parents. You have to be like 16 or 18. And, when our son was 11, we were lying and saying that he was 16 years old because he loved to train with us. And a lot of families that we're friends with are really looking for a place too where they can bring their teenager and spend the day there as a family and work out together. So that's something that's important to us too, as far as forming this.
We also have friends who are golfers, so we put our design calls for 2 HD golf simulators.
I was going to ask you about that. I saw that on the website.
Well, in the Manhattan, there's nowhere to play golf. You have Chelsea Piers downtown, and you have Randall's Island. So.
And infrared saunas?
Infrared saunas, absolutely, which is also big with cancer. And so I should have brought my list.
The only thing missing, I think, is you don't have float tanks.
We don't have float tanks. Now, we have the option for a third floor above us that we're looking at, because the people we work with with HBOT is the same people we work with NASA. And when they put the feelers out that we were opening hyperbaric oxygen therapy, the amount of demand that was looking for HBOT was really big. So people who've had different surgeries, if you're in HBOT, you heal very fast. Now the U.S. government is, for the first time ever, using HBOT for PTSD and returning veterans. So that's a big thing. So we would love to do the tanks, but that's if we get the next floor. Exactly. Yeah, now you're thinking like me, right? Isn't it fun?
It's great. I always think like that. I just didn't have a spare 14 mil to do. That's amazing. So I'm going to put in the show notes the website for both your nonprofit, F.A.S.T, and also the gym, so people can check it out. And when they come to Manhattan, they have to go there.
Yeah.
The thing that I really love about it is, Tatiana, you touched on this, the community aspect, especially the family option.
Right.
The other day, I like to get my daughter to meditate, and I took her along to a meditation. It's like a free meditation at the yoga studio, local yoga studio. And they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, what? They're like, no, you can't bring children in here. And I'm like, crazy. Are you joking? And then they're like, wait there. Of course you can. Well, as long as she doesn't interrupt. And I'm like, she won't interrupt. I'm more likely to interrupt than her. And I think they realize, oh, wow, that actually works. And I love the idea of being able to bring your whole family along and experience health together.
Absolutely. That's so important.
The gym in our building was really integral to, I think, my health and recovery from the hospital and cancer, because it's literally a 30-second elevator ride. So I can't like not go. Like I don't feel like, oh, I'm on chemo, so I don't want to get in a car and go to the gym. Like, okay, I'm on chemo, but it's an elevator ride. How can I not go down? But being able to train, there was one time where I was training, Tatiana was training, Tatiana's father was there training, and Austin was training. We were all there together. And I just looked around and I was like, wow, we're all training together. And there's nothing better than training with your kids and your wife, and it's just fun. And everybody's getting it too. Everybody's good.
It's a family outing.
Yeah. And we all have heart rate monitors on.
That's awesome. Look, thank you so much for sharing everything, your whole life.
Yeah, it wasn't too much.
Is there anything else that you, I guess, maybe even a tip for our audience? You've been through so much, especially recently. Is there any sort of, I guess, advice or just anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, let me mention one thing. There was a book that really, Tatiana got every single book there was, but one that made a big difference was Tom Monty. It's called Unexpected Recoveries. And what the difference was, he's a very gentle man. And I think New York and the circumstances, just life had hardened me. And that hardness would probably cause some stress, some internal. I'm type A. I don't like emotion, so I would hide that and push that down. He was so gentle. We met with him personally. We drove a few hours to go see him in Pennsylvania to see him. And I came out of there with a new look and a new change. And what it allowed me to do is, as you're fixing yourself, you can control nutrition. In fact, it's your job to control nutrition. You can control how much you exercise. It's your job to move, to be healthy. But you have to stop and look internally. And what he told me was, think about yourself as a child. And if you were giving yourself advice as a child, would you put your arm around you and protect you more? What would you think about how would you protect yourself as a child more? And it allowed me to look at myself from a child to now, give myself credit for things, come in and say, okay, you took a lot of damage here, but you're all right, you're fine. Looking inside, finding peace and staying positive, and then being real with yourself. And what do I have to do to become healthy? The fact that we're here and still alive, you should be grateful. I'm grateful for Tatiana every single day. I'm grateful for my son every single day. I'm grateful to have met you and for this experience, which I've never had unless you would have sent us an email from Discover Omni. So I say probably gratitude and being positive, and that's probably it, being a good person.
Just hearing how you've dealt with this is inspiring in itself. It's amazing. Tatiana, is there anything that you'd add?
I agree with everything that Hunter said. I think gratitude is so huge. I think when people talk about being in the moment, it gets overused because that's sort of been the saying, as of late, but life is now. That's really all it is, and how you react and choose to react to the world and the things thrown at you really affects the outcome, and we're just grateful to have each other. He's my best friend, everything. I can't imagine not being with him every day. So
I know that because I tried to interview just him and it's impossible. I'm not even allowed to separate you for an interview. I love it.
She's necessary with Omni. She's necessary with my life. So next is all us training together at Omni.
Look, I slept at the hospital every
She didn't leave for
night.
21 days. So thank you for having us, by the way.
That's amazing. Now, I'm not letting you go yet.
Oh, okay.
Because there's one question that I have to ask you both. Slightly personal, but I ask all my guests on the show.
Okay.
Do you have a tattoo?
I have several.
Can you tell us about briefly?
All right. So one I have, this is the turtle. This represents
my nickname. He's like the Roadrunner, and I'm a little bit more.
So this represents the family. So this, you see our initials. This is yin and yang for the struggle of life.
So I drew the turtle and put the TS, and then our son said, he was very young, he said, what about me? So we put an A in there for him.
So that's our family.
That's awesome.
And then this is my bulldog, Pearl, who passed away.
Wow.
And she says Cajun, because I'm Cajun. And then I have some ones on my back and one on my leg, which is, this was interesting is when I first moved here, before we had gotten serious and I was in another relationship and my life was crazy. So this little strip right here just meant chaos to me.
Looks like barbed wire.
Yeah.
It's just that's what my life felt like at the time. I was young. I was alone in New York for the first time. The girl I had moved here with from Louisiana, or that was gone. And my mom was sick. it was weird, so it was barbed wire. I don't know. It's such a man thing. Isn't this ridiculous?
And he has one on his back and he has one on his leg, too.
Yeah,
we might be here all day. And Tatiana, how about yourself?
I have no tattoos, no.
Is it because he's just taking care of that area, or?
I've never...
What's wrong with your dude with Austin?
Huh?
We said we would all get one.
Oh, that's right. Yes. After Hunter got out of the hospital, Austin and I said, once everything is done and we're back home and once Austin's he's 16. We want to wait until he's 18 to do this. But we came up with a design that represents the three of us and that we would all get a matching tattoo.
Awesome. And what's the design?
My son came up with it. It's our three astrological symbols interwoven together. So Hunter is a Gemini, I'm a Taurus, our son is a Virgo. And he found these sort of very cool, sort of abstract looking symbols that represent all three. And we kind of placed them on top of each other and they're sort of interwoven and it came up with a really nice symbol. So that's something that all three of us want to do eventually.
That's awesome. Guys, thanks again. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ali.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review and subscribe.